بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. Alhamdulillah, it's great to have a balance, so I can just look here as well. It's great to have all of you. Would like to welcome you to this humble session, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us all through so we can benefit from it, we learn together. And indeed, this is an act of ibadah or worship in Islam, as we are trying together to seek more knowledge and to develop ourselves. Today or tonight, I'm going to talk to you in just a quick introduction and then four points to be highlighted. The first is consumerism and Islamic ethics, the relationship between both, and consumerism and sustainability in Islam. We'll talk to you also about achieving a balance as consumers in the light of Islam, and last but not least, the relationship between consumption and spirituality in this beautiful religion. So let me just start with an introduction, saying that there is a non-Muslim thinker who has described consumerism as a new religion, right? And malls as the temples of that religion. I know that makes it quite strong expression, yet it's quite close to the reality. Having said that, we still enjoy and benefit from having malls and markets. Not only that, in Islam, when you get into the market, there is a dua, there is a supplication you need to say, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu, له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت up to the end. This dua or supplication is something we are asked to say before entering the market or the malls. Let me just say that I would like to add a word to the title of the lecture, saying that it's a glimpse at consumerism from an Islamic perspective, only a glimpse. Otherwise, this topic could become like a paper. I would like just to make it as informal as possible. And I will try to finalize or finish in just 40 minutes. And then we are going to open the floor and have questions and answers, comments, and we can have a very productive discussion, which is the main important thing in the lecture to be followed by. When we read the Qur'an, we find that the Qur'an said about God's true servants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described God's true servants in beautiful passage at the end of the chapter, Al-Furqan, or criterion. Among the qualities of God's true servants is, as the Quran says, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. And they are those who, when they spend, they do so not excessively or sparingly, but are ever between that, justly moderate. So they are not misers nor wasters. Because now, if you expect that today I'm talking to you about don't waste, well, I'm talking to you about I and you shouldn't be misers, right? We shouldn't be misers nor wasters. But the main problem of today is actually wasting. It is a big problem of wasting. And many thinkers said that what is in the world is not enough for it. So through some few generations, we are going to vanish. This is not right. The problem is that what Allah has created on the earth is enough for us, but the problem is that we are not using it wisely. We are over-consuming. And over-consumption is a big problem nowadays. This verse is talking about a middle way, a middle path. It's talking about moderation, and this is actually a key to the topic. So please don't take my words as I'm telling you to stop buying anything, because I do buy as well. So I'm gonna just actually be inconsistent with myself if I tell you or I ask you to do something I don't do myself. I came today to you driving my own car using petrol. I have polluted that much of the universe or our planet, so I'm not perfect, but we are trying to learn together tonight to be a little bit better and to improve our status as individuals, our status as Muslims, and our status as human beings in this universe. Understanding that Allah has given us what we have as a trust, amana. So that trusteeship is a main important thing to talk about when we talk about consumerism. Allah has given this universe, or this, not only the earth, but the whole thing around us as a trust or as amana. So if Allah has given you your health as a trust, you are supposed to take care of it. And again, our money, our wealth, our health, or considered as amanat or as a trust. You know, since the early morning, you wake up in the morning, if you switch on your TV or radio, then you start to get bombarded with a lot of messages asking you to buy. You need to buy if you would like to be happy. This is indirect messages. If you would like to be happy, you need to buy. And by the way, many people go to the mall and they buy and keep buying, not because they need, but because they have a lot of stress. And by buying, that stress actually goes a little bit down and down. This is proven, it's quite proven that happens. Okay, so they're not dealing with the problem because the problem is stress. So how do they deal with the stress? By going and buying and buying. Buying something that we don't need is something very bad. We need to just be able to decide what to buy, how much we buy, and how much is enough. How much is enough? Islamic ethics and consumerism. What is ethics? When we say ethics, big word. It's actually very simple. It's the sets of values and traditions that we have as Muslims that helps us to distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong, halal and haram. You will have a lot of dimensions while I'm talking about or talking to that topic. You'll find the dimension of halal and haram, lawful and unlawful. You'll find another dimension of wholesome food, for example, and non-wholesome, right? Because Allah described the good food as halalan, not only halalan tayyiba. Halalan, lawful, tayyiba, wholesome. So the takeaway food that have been processed quite badly, is that a wholesome? Question mark, right? So the ethics are those sets of values that helps us to distinguish between halal and haram, right and wrong, good or bad. Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when we talk about ethics, he's our role model. He lived a very simple life. A life that humanity would love to follow. And that's why a group of Americans in the year 1989 in the States, where a big bang of consumerism started, right? Again, good stuff started in the States as well. In the year 1989, some group of people started to have a meeting just like ours, and they started to look again, review consumerism or being consumers and spending without non-stop. And those groups started to create something that became a movement today is called the minimalists, right? So wallah, if those people read about Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, I can assure you they would love him a lot, alayhi salatu wassalam. Because Sayyidina Muhammad is a role model in this direction, in many directions. And in this topic, he was a role model, alayhi salatu wassalam. He would actually sew his own clothes, fix his own shoes. He would milk his own lamb. You know, he was very simple in his life. And his house doesn't have extras. You know, if you come to my house, if I go to your house, how much stuff do we have that we can actually define as extras? If I ask you that you go tonight to your house and look at your wardrobe, how many shirts do you have? How many pants do you have? 1, 2, still we're talking halal, haram, halal for you to buy, no problem. I cannot say it's haram, because I have my stuff as well. But the point is how much of that stuff you are using on a regular basis, and how much of that stuff, for example, you haven't been using for the last year. I go myself to my wardrobe and I find a beautiful jacket, right? And then I say that it's very difficult to get rid of the extras, but we have to start. And then I go that, no, I remember from where I bought this. This is quite not only expensive, but it carries a lot of good memories for me, you know? So it's very difficult for me to get rid of it. I bought it from a specific place in a specific country, so that brings some good memories to my mind and makes me feel happy. Not wearing it, but I'm having it hanging inside my wardrobe. Isn't it better to just give it to somebody who actually needs? And if we do this, do you think that we are going to have poverty? Consumerism and ethics in Islam. In Islam, if you look at the worship system in Islam, it's very simple. You have 5 pillars. Shahada, right? The testimony. You have prayer, charity, zakat, fasting, sawm, and pilgrimage, hajj. Correct? If you look at the dimensions of this ibadah, it would actually convince you to be a very simple person. Right? Even when you go to make wudu, for example, I'm not supposed to excessively use the water. Even according to one hadith, even though it's a bit weak, even if I am making wudu from a river, running river. And that will take us to sustainability later on. So we need to sustain what we have. We need to respect the resources Allah has given us, right? As Muslims, as human beings. Consumerism and sustainability. As I said, if you make an wudu from a river, you need not to use the water excessively. You need to be aware that this is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to remember that many people on the universe, that planet, are struggling getting their fresh and clean water to drink, not to make wudu, right? Sometimes you go, some brothers come and visit me. I don't like that, but they come and visit me. When they go to make wudu, wallahi, it becomes like a path. Not making wudu, you know, the water is splashed everywhere. You know, too much water. You don't need all of that to make wudu. You don't need a lot of water to make wudu. Right? You can make wudu with just a glass of water if you want to. And Sayyidina Muhammad would make a bath with some water like less than that. You would say, no way. Well, according to some novels, not from the Sunnah, I'm not sure about that, but the Arabs in this area, they didn't have enough water. So usually what would they do is actually they will have the water, it's very hot, the water is not that much, they have a towel, right? They soak it into the water and they go over the body. They might, clean, they would clean it. Sayyidina Muhammad would clean his body and Sayyidina Muhammad smelled beautiful all the time. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But look how wise Sayyidina Muhammad would use the water. If I tell you, no, if I tell myself to make a shower in the morning with this, no way. We would say no way. But even though we still are not aware of the importance of sustaining what we have and conserving what we have. That's why the Muslims, the early Muslims, the thinkers, the writers, the novelists, Muslims, were aware of these issues quite early time. Among them is Ibn Sina. After Ibn Sina, a great writer and a novelist, a physician, a philosopher called Ibn Tufayl. What is his name? Ibn Ibn Tufayl. You can go Tophail. Ibn Tufayl, an Andalusian scholar. Today is Spain. He was Spanish Muslim. So he wrote many books, all lost except only one. What is the name of that novel? It's called Hayy bin Yaqdhan, the awake, the son of the alive. All of us are the awake, and all of us are the son of the alive. He's talking about the human being in its simple way. Story which Tarazan had been taken from originally, what you see in the cinema and stuff. Originally, this has been written by a Muslim writer. It's either Ibn Tufayl or Ibn Sina or Avicenna. So this baby, the king was killing everybody, every male to be born for some reason. The mom had to put the baby in a basket and put him into the sea. The waves started to take the basket till it reached a deserted island, only an island which has only animals. So a deer got the baby, right? Started to breastfeed the baby, and the baby started to grow and learn from the deer and the animals, and he started to learn the language of the animals. Does that sound like Tarzan? Jungle Book, okay. I'm giving you the reference so you can go to the internet and get this booklet quite soon, as fast as this. So now that baby is in the middle of the forests, in the middle of the natural resources Allah has created. How he was interacting with those resources. One. The second question, was he able to learn that Allah exists without prophets and messengers? That was the second point or question. And the writer started to treat this. Indeed, this guy started to learn his mom died, the deer, and that was a big shock for him. And he started to make anatomy. He opened up the belly, and he started to look at the heart, and he came to know somehow that the heart stopped. So he learned that this, when this piece stops, human life ends, and so on and so forth. Hay, as he was named, the awake. Hay would walk in the forest. If he find an animal that got wounded, he would just help that animal. Hay, if he finds a plant that doesn't get water because there is something in the way, he would remove this to let the water reach that plant. This is how Hay interacted with his outside world, the natural world. And then he started to think about Allah, and he believed in Allah without messengers and prophets. It's quite philosophical, but my point here is that this early thinker and Muslim scholar was able to tackle this point of sustainability and the interaction between the man and the environment from an Islamic perspective. This is what we need to do, right? Yeah, I am shifting a little bit towards sustainability, a little bit towards natural life, yet we're still talking about consumerism. Because if we don't sustain what we have, we are going to have a problem. If we over-consume what we have, we are going to be facing a big problem as well. Now, how can we achieve a balance as consumers in the light of Islam? Allah says in the Qur'an, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. وَكُلُوا, eat, وَاشْرَبُوا, and drink, وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, but do not overconsume, don't waste. So we are going to enjoy eating indeed. It's a halal, we can enjoy this, and we can enjoy whatever drink as long as it is halal. But the point here, the criterion here, the equilibrium here is وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. This is the secret. Do not be among wasters. Don't waste. You know, if you have double of the same thing, this is wasting. If you have two things and you're not using the second, this is wasting straight ahead. Because now you tell me that, you're telling me that if I have extra, am I wasting? Yes. If you have extras, 1, 2, that you are not using, you are wasting. And Allah, as I said about the believers, those His servants, when they spend, they are not misers nor wasters. They are taking a middle path. In Islam, we have objectives in Islamic law. We have 3 objectives. The first one called to preserve the following. 1, ad-darurat, necessities, or the essentials. This is for all human beings, not only Muslims. Necessities. A shelter is a necessity. I'm not going to live in the street. Food is a necessity. Water is a necessity. Right? This is a necessity. Medication is a necessity. Education, right, is a necessity indeed. So you have ad-darurat, necessities. The second, and ad-darurat has got 5 things, but I'm not going to take you down that track. And the second thing is al-hajiyat, the needs. So what are the difference between necessities and needs? Necessities you cannot live without it. If you have no shelter, you are going to have a very bad life that bring you close to death. Right? If you have no water, this is the end. Right? But hajiyat needs is something, if it is absent, your life can still be carried on, but it's not going to be as easy. In some communities, in some societies, a car could become like a need. When the transportation system is limited, that beyond the specific hours you don't have transportation. So what could be a luxury in some societies might be a need in others. Does that make sense? Because now somebody go sick, where are you going to go? You either going to call a taxi to get a taxi, or you have your own car. You're not going to go to the bus, stop and take a bus. Lay aside that has got limitation. Now, this is the second. The third and last, but not least, is al-daruriyat, al-hajiyat. The last, al-tahsiniyat, or what we call complementary interests. Like now, I have this top, it's doing the job, right? To have it branded, this is complementary. I'm not gonna die, right? If this is not branded. Having said that, I'm not telling you that you're not allowed to buy branded. Sometimes buying branded clothes and stuff is actually cheaper. Sometimes it's cheaper and higher quality. But I'm just giving an example. Now, what is the relationship between spirituality in Islam and consumption? Sayyidina Muhammad, and listen to this, subhanallah. Very important hadith. You might have never heard of it before, and it is very authentic. He was talking to the companions and he said, Firashun, he's talking about bidding. Like how many bids you have? Who would say that Islam is talking about this? Come on. He said, Firashun laka, wa firashun li zawjika, wa firashun li dayfika wa rabi'u li shaytan. The first bidding in your house is for you. The second, for your family. The third is for your guest. And the fourth is for Satan. If we take this literally, meaning that the shaitan is using it. If we take it sentimentally, then that means that there is no blessing, there is no barakah. You know what I mean? So now Sayyidina Muhammad is drawing the attention of Sahaba al-Kiram and our attention that we shouldn't have extras. The first one you have it, the second one for the kids, for this and that. The third is for your guests, even though that might not be used, is not used regularly, but there is a point of usage. Does that make sense? Right? You fold it, it's in there, right? You might use it once or twice a year, but you will use it indeed. Because Muslim has got a culture of hospitality, right? I'm not going to visit you in the house. I came from another country, and you will tell me, thank you very much, shukran, inshallah, see you later. Indeed, if you are able to, and you would offer me some place to stay if I'm a close friend, indeed, before, even if you're not a friend, before, but because of the corruption that has happened among Muslims, then now, no, I don't know you, Allahu A'lam, you come, is not good, Maybe somebody comes to your house and then you give him a place and then your house is robbed in the morning. But originally Muslims are very, very hospitable, that they would give a stranger 3 days to stay in their own houses. They will never ask him, where you going from, where you came, even they won't ask him that, right? And give him the food and stuff and let him start to talk. So Sayyidina Muhammad is saying that if you have that extra bed, it's fine. But if you have a fourth bed or a fifth or a 10th or whatever, which that you are not using, then this is for the shaitan. You might be having 10 beds, but they are all barakah and they are used. Right? You and your spouse, and you have 8 kids, mashallah. Allah. May Allah help you. Right? You have 10, but no problem. This is what Islam says, no problem. But if you have extra not in use, this is for the shaitan. Literally, the shaitan is, do you want the shaitan in your house? Do I want the shaitan to be in my house? Do I really want the shaitan to be in my house? Do you want the barakah, the blessing, to be taken away from your life? And what we are experiencing today, in today's world, is that the barakah, the blessing, has been taken from our life. Why? Because we're staying away from all those beautiful teachings of Islam. To make our life more simpler, not to buy something that we don't need, right? To buy that what we really need in life. And now when you go to the mall became a style of life. People are studying us, our habits of consuming. You know, when do we buy? How do we buy? What do we buy? How much? And listen to this trick, right? A beautiful item is offered for $1,000, right? But now you can buy it for $750. And you go and you buy it. You think that you have saved $250. Actually, you have spent $750. Does that make sense? So when you buy, it's not that those guys are playing with my mind. Do I really need that item? If it is a yes, and I compare prices and I buy it, that's fine. But if it is a no, and I'm buying it because it is on sale, then I have a problem. I need to have a detox. Because most likely, Allahu Alam, most likely I am very stressed, going through a lot of things. And buying a lot of stuff would calm me down and make me feel very good. Right? When you go and buy stuff, new things, you come back home, you feel very good, you know? But do you really need what you have? And the same thing would apply to your food. If you go to your house and find a lot of food stored, or a lot of food that is expired, then you are not over your habits of buying or consumption or consuming. If you open your freezers and you find things that are out of date, right, that you need to take them to the rubbish, you need to pause and sit down and say, Astaghfirullah. This is a ma'asiyah, this is a sin, right? This is a sin. If you take it lightly and think it's fine, it's not fine. Our forefathers have taught us to respect the gift Allah has given us. Right? And this is Islamic principle. Right? In some cultures, I'm not saying this is Islamic, but respecting gifts of Allah is Islamic. But the way are different. In my culture, maybe in some other culture, you find a piece of bread, you go, take it, kiss it, and put it aside. You don't leave it in the middle of the street, so people step on it. And you look at this is a folklore. Well, it's not directly in Islam, but if you look at the sentimental value of this teaching, it teaches our kids that we need to value what we have as gifts. Because we started to forget about this, our kids started not to value anything we give them. You take them to the best places, they tell you this is not a big deal. Right? So you are giving a hard time. And not only our kids, even ourselves, we don't feel satisfied because we cannot appreciate Allah's gift subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the beginning for a content life starts with a content heart is when you choose a simpler life. A life that is not demanding. You have to have this and this and this and this and this and this endless list to be happy. Guess what? You will never be happy. Do you know why? Because you won't be able to buy everything. Does that make sense? You won't be able to buy everything. No one would, So before we go to the session of questions and answers, let me just summarize the topic by saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us as Muslim, when it comes to consuming, has given us a beautiful criterion to follow. Qur'ān. Among this is many ayat. The verse my brother Mahmoud has recited, إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. The wasters are the brothers of the Satan. Allah is making us aware of how bad it is by saying that if you're wasting, you are the brother of the Satan, the brethren of the Satan. So stay away from wasting. But in another verse in Surah Al-Furqan, the criterion, the chapter, Allah says among God's true servants' qualities is that وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا, when they spend, لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا. They're not wasters nor misers. I don't want to, after this lecture, you go and you start to make it very difficult for your spouse. And then you tell the Sheikh said this is haram. I didn't say that. What the Quran says is to create or to just have a middle way, a middle path. Is not to be a Western, not a miser. To choose the middle path. Before buying anything, do I need it? Do I need it now? Right? How much do I need? Do I need one or two? Am I buying two because buy one and the second one 50% off? Yeah, this is a trick. Am I doing this because of that offer? And I'm not saying that I don't do that mistake. I do that mistake. That's why we're discussing it together. And I'm sure if I'm doing this, you are human like me. You are doing the same. Sometimes you might be better, way better than me. So this is something we need to bring to our discussion. Remember that the Islamic ethics, the set of values that have been laid down by Qur'an and tradition of Sayyidina Muhammad is a main guidance for us when it comes to consuming. The life of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how simple his life used to, just a bit. If you go to Mecca, in the way between Mecca and Jeddah, after you finish your Umrah inshallah or Hajj, there is a museum built by a great man, may Allah bless him. And this museum replicates the life of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How the bed of Rasulullah used to look like, in what pot Sayyidina Muhammad would drink in, a place for the bread. Easy, simple stuff. A cushion to sit on. Right? When the Sahaba would come, he would give them a cushion. It's only one or two cushions. Right? Again, not saying to you that to be exactly like this, because it might be very difficult. Sayyidina Rasulullah is very high in his spirituality. But what I'm saying is that we need to start. And when it comes to sustainability, we need to be aware of the gifts Allah has given us and sustain those gifts, not to abuse Allah's creation. Allah has given us the water, not to abuse it by wasting it. Other people are dying on the other side of the world because they have no fresh water. Right? Same applies to the food. If you have extra stuff in your house, get rid of it. Declutter. Don't accumulate things, hoping that one day I'm going to use them. And then it's 10 years and you never touched them. Remember that achieving a balance is the best. And Islam is a religion of balance. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Allah has made us into a middle path nation. Last but not least, remember that if your consumption's attitudes are quite negative, that would impact on your spirituality. And remember the hadith I've shared with you. The first bit for you, the second for your family, the third is for your guest, and the fourth, which is not used at all, is for the Satan. So you don't need to have the company of a Satan in your house. You need to have the company of the angels. You need to have the barakah, the blessing in your house. May Allah give you barakah and make your life a very good one, and enable me and you to consume in a middle way so we can achieve the core meaning of Islam in our life. Thank you very much.